Back to working with water-soluble graphite pencils. I'm hoping to complete this illustration today and do the finishing touches to it. Sorry about the last session finishing so abruptly. I was only halfway through this flower. Due to a technical fault, I was unable to complete it then, but I think this should be the last demonstration in this particular picture that I'm working on. So to continue with the leaves, I'm using a 2B pencil, graphite pencil. As before, one thing I did forget to mention last time was always make sure your pencils are sharp. Working with the blunt pencils, not a good idea. I usually use a knife to sharpen. That gives the point a nice long piece of lead to work with, which you can shape either by using the knife or by rubbing it carefully on a piece of sandpaper. You can get quite a nice flat edge to it, which helps if you want to work smoothly. Using that flat edge, you get a nice soft layer of graphite on the paper, and you can alternate if you need the sharp edge for making more specific marks. So to me it's most important always to have that pencil sharpened, and you can control the way you like to work with it. I'm hoping we don't have any camera problems today and I can complete this with you. Once we've done these last couple of leaves and the stalk, we'll take a look at the whole picture as a whole. Again, I've got my plant available for checking out what each section looks like, each leaf, each petal, to try and get it just the way that I want it to be. Always takes me a little while to get into the strokes again. Could do with a little warm-up before drawing. It's always a good idea to do some scribble warm-ups just to get your hand in. Again, I'm working with layers of wash. So that's the first layer there. I'm going to now use the water brush again to blend it in and soften it, give it a smooth texture. These leaves are actually very, very smooth. And quite honestly, I often find leaves more difficult to do than actual flowers. They're all so very different. Each plant has its own shape and texture of leaf. You can see there's not much difference in the tonal value between these two. And reminding you of the importance of having that difference in value, in shade at this stage, so that we can differentiate between the different elements. So I'm going to have to work on this with more layers and decide which one is catching more light and which one is in more shadow, to get that to work properly. A little bit of graphite left on the brush makes quite a nice light shade. Here where the leaf is curling, it just catches the light on that edge. Same with these edges here. I've started working on the stem. earlier, so we can also virtually painting this in. So if you enjoy painting with watercolor, you will really enjoy working with graphite wash, because it's very similar to ink wash or watercolor wash. So inks and watercolors and graphite all go very well together if you would like to combine them. So now I'm selecting I think a 6B. I'm saving my 8B for the very darkest shades, and I'm thinking this one lying under that one to give the impression of that one overlapping. I will darken this section of this leaf, applying a little more pressure to make it darker where I feel it needs to be. Got that nice flat edge for doing broader strokes. Maybe just under there, under the fold. Always to keep in mind, because I'm working partially here from what I see and partially from what I know. Having done the initial drawing and established where the light is coming from, it's also useful just to use your memory and your imagination so that the picture works as a whole. Often we have to change, or most times have to change nature slightly to make it into an art piece. So let's see if that's going to work. It's darker underneath here. Slightly darker. Trying to omit going over the vein area just to keep them a little bit lighter as they appear on the leaves. Slight difference there. I added a little dark here as well. Leaves always often remind me of the flowing of a skirt or folds in fabric. On flowers we see that as well, and petals, rose petals particularly. Very similar technique to use if you were doing folded fabric drapes on a figure. Right, wipe that off, dry it. I'm going to use now the very dark 8B. Just to do the stem, which is catching the least light, and I want it to stand out from the leaves, give an impression of it sitting behind the leaves in the darkest parts of this flower. Bit of shadow there under the leaf. Add a bit here too. And I think on this particular leaf I'll use this 8B just under where these folds are to give it a bit of contrast. Use the tip of the pencil, the point, to get a nice hard edge, and the flat of the pencil for the soft. There's so much that comes into drawing with pencil. We often take it for granted that just use it as if you would when you were writing, but there are so many different nuances you can obtain with an ordinary pencil, not even necessarily a wash pencil. So that's going to be the shadow part, and then I'm going to use the 6B again, which is slightly lighter in tone. Trying to do this quickly. Should never rush yourselves, take your time. But for the purpose of this demonstration, an unreliable camera, I am trying to get it done as fast as possible here. I love working with the brush. You get a nice smooth flowing line. It also takes practice working with a fine brush. Of course, you could use a bigger brush. If you're working on a large area of wash, you could use a much larger brush or a flat brush. It doesn't have to be a pointed one at all, like this. A bit more water on it. I gave it a shake. Paper under my hand to keep the paper clean. You can give this pen a slight squeeze if you want the water to come out in a greater abundance, because it's sometimes dries when you're working with quite a big wash. Again, I'm working with the flow of the leaf, trying to maintain the same direction of the veins. We'll put in the stem. Now, before I go further, I want to wipe out a bit. If you were watching the previous video, I demonstrated how you can use an ordinary brush, clean water brush, dipped in some water to lighten a part. Now, I would like that to stand out a little more, so I'm adding a little water to it, drying the brush off, and then lifting some of the wash off to lighten that area. It works quite nicely. Be very gentle with this paper, with it not being a heavy paper. I'm going to lighten some of this as well. Give it a little bit of contrast here. Smooth it out a little. The water also helps with that. It makes it slightly translucent, as if there were some light showing through the leaf. Well, I've got this wet brush. Let's see where I can use it anywhere else to create some contrast. It always pays to stand back from your work and have a good look at it before you finalize everything. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in with the dark 8B, just to select some places where I feel it needs a little more definition. This is a personal choice, really, to know when to stop. It's not an easy thing. for any artist. Darken that slightly. I might make a little darker shadow under here. This graphite is quite shiny when it catches the light before it's blended in with water. Here too. This is 8p. Some little areas where I'd like to enhance. Give a better illusion here of the receding petals as they go inward. Right, so I think that's about it for now. I hope it was helpful, and I hope you'll experiment. It probably wasn't the best subject matter to practice tonal values on, but it was a challenging one for me. I enjoyed it very much, and I'd advise you to try on all sorts of different subjects of your own choice. Thank you. Thank you for watching.